Good afternoon. Hello and welcome to Liberty and Gun Rights Podcast. Today is December the 4th, 2023. And if you're like me, you keep up to date with gun legislation, especially the NRA, ILA, email alerts. And I got one today in my inbox, and I felt like I needed to share it with you guys and gals. It's pretty important. I'm going to open up this web browser full screen so you can see it better. It says federal legislation introduced to ban gas-operated semi-automatic firearms. Joe Biden has long insisted he would ban what he calls assault weapons and has enlisted a motley succession of extreme anti-gun legislators to aid in that effort. Now, Senators Angus King and Martin Heinrich have joined that dubious collective by introducing perhaps the most sweeping gun prohibition bill of the 21st century. Both had voted against prior versions of federal assault weapons bans, making their debut effort into the genre notable not only for its scope but as a paradigmatic in-office flip-flop. But at the end of the day, their bill is just like its predecessors in targeting law-abiding gun owners while leaving armed criminals unperturbed. Most assault weapon ban bills to be introduced in Congress follow a similar formula. First, they ban various types of firearms by name, usually adding their duplicates or copies, whatever that might mean. Then they generally prohibit all semi-automatic long guns with certain supposed military-style features. Finally, they ban detachable magazines based on their capacity, typically drawing the line at 10 rounds. This bill, however, targets semi-automatic firearms of all kinds and configurations, presumptively banning them as a class, and then exempting some of them. The usual magazine ban is also included, capping legal capacity of most types of ammunition feeding devices at 10 rounds. This legislation goes even further. If passed, the bill would order ATF to publish a list of whatever semi-automatic firearms remain legal for sale to and possession by the general public. This is likely due to the vague definitions and exemptions within the bill. As an example, the exemption in the bill for semi-automatic handguns is so poorly written that it wouldn't apply to many popular self-defense handguns and, depending on its interpretation, may not apply to any handguns, meaning the bill could ban all semi-automatic handguns. The handgun exception applies to a handgun that is a single or double action semi-automatic handgun that uses recoil to cycle the action of the handgun. This exception clearly excludes all blowback handguns, including extremely popular .380 self-defense handguns like the Ruger LCP and gas-delayed handguns like the HK P7. But a narrow interpretation of what it means to use recoil to cycle the action could exclude the popular Browning short recoil operating system that is used by essentially all modern handguns of 9mm or larger caliber. But that's not all. Going forward, ATF would have the unprecedented authority to determine which semi-automatic firearms, if any, threaded their way through the bill's intricate verbiage to remain lawful for civilian use. Just how much authority ATF would wield over the commercial gun market under these provisions is unclear, especially since the bill purports to exempt guns its terms wouldn't actually ban in the first place. The bill goes even further, however, and gives anti-gunners a third bite at the apple by granting them the right to sue to have whatever semi-automatic firearms that remained legal removed from ATF's permissible list. This would render these guns manufacture, importation, acquisition, and possession generally illegal. Further demonstrated Further demonstrating its sponsors' contempt for science, technology, and modern, at least when it comes to guns. I can't pronounce that word. The, the bill would prohibit any modification to a permissible semi automatic firearm that increased its rate of fire. This would likely ban things such as bump stocks and binary triggers. But what about more subtle upgrades that make a firearm operate more smoothly or efficiently for competitive or disabled shooters? As usual, the law's reach is impossible to determine based on its bare text. People who already owned firearms newly banned by the bill, and there would be many such people, could keep them, but they would only be able to transfer them to immediate family members, and only then if the federal firearms licensee processed the transfer as if it were a commercial sale with all the government bureaucracy that entails. Newly banned magazines, on the other hand, could be possessed but not transferred by their owners. Of course, the bill aims to demoralize and intimidate as many people as possible into giving up their right to own firearms by repurposing funds that are currently earmarked to support law enforcement to bribe Americans into surrendering their guns to the government. We have said it many times before when it comes to assault weapon bans, but it bears repeating. The guns targeted by this bill are primarily owned by law-abiding people who keep them for defensive and other lawful purposes. They are, in fact, the most popular guns sold in America today. And semi-automatic rifles are actually underrepresented in murders behind not just other guns but other types of weapons, including knives and even hands and feet. Beyond all of the practical problems with the bill, it clearly violates the Second Amendment. The Supreme Court has made clear that the Second Amendment protects arms in common use for lawful purposes. And just last year, the Supreme Court laid out the test for evaluating whether a law is in violation of the Second Amendment. To survive Second Amendment scrutiny, a law must be consistent with Americans' history and tradition of arms regulation. America has never had a widespread ban on categories of firearms or accessories, and there is absolutely no historical support for giving a federal agency control over what types firearms can be legally brought to the market. But respect for constitutional rights has never been part of the anti-gun agenda. In the end, this legislation follows the same path as most modern gun control by attempting to blame violent crime on America's law-abiding gun owners while doing nothing to stop those who use firearms unlawfully. Now, I want to reiterate, this is not something that this podcast developed or created. It's created by the NRA, ILA, and it's called Federal Legislation Introduced to Ban Gas-Operated Semi-Automatic Firearms. And I'm sure that none of us are shocked by the breadth or the scope of this bill. And it's a very dangerous bill at the federal level. And it behooves us as legal gun owners to get a hold of our state representatives, whatever state you're in, whether you're in South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, wherever. If you're a legal gun owner and you're a Second Amendment supporter and you are against this type of legislation or you don't agree with it, I would highly recommend that you find out who your legislator is, your Senate and House of Representative legislators, and get on. You Google it. You can figure it out. Google it and find out who they are. Send them an email. Leave them a voicemail. Call them on the phone. Send them a letter. Send them postcards. This is a call to action for all of us. I'll say it again. It's a call to action for all of us because Joe Biden and the powers to be the gun grabbers and the anti-gunners are absolutely looking for a way to ban the firearms that we own and are possibly going to purchase for defensive reasons, for defending our families and loved ones, and also for sport shooting and things like that. So this is just a quick podcast post to make you aware of this federal legislation introduced to ban gas-operated semi-automatic firearms in the federal government. And I hope and pray that we all take this to heart and we don't ignore it. And none of us can have the attitude of, oh, I'm not going to worry about talking to my government representatives, my legislators, because everybody else is probably going to do it, so I don't need to do it. Please don't think that. We all need to be responsible gun owners, and we need to take this as a call to action and do it. Let's do it. Let's let our federal and state legislators know that we're not going to tolerate this, and we do not agree. And we have a voice, and we have a right to voice our opinions and to tell them this is bullshit. Don't do it. And so anyway, I appreciate you listening to the podcast. This podcast is here for you. And if there are guest speakers that you'd like to hear on our podcast, let me know. Write me an email at Liberty Gun Rights Podcast at proton.me. That's Liberty Rights Podcast at proton.me. If there's somebody you'd like to hear as a guest speaker, let me know. Let me know who that would be, and I'll try to get them to. I'll invite them to the podcast and get them to be a guest speaker. I'm working on organizing a podcast episode here very soon with Tom Fernandez. Tom Fernandez is a well-known Second Amendment activist here in the Charleston area. He's a personal injury lawyer, and he talks quite a bit on his Facebook feed about Second Amendment issues. So I really would enjoy having him as a guest speaker. And he's already told me he'll do it. He would love to do it. It's just a matter of timing and getting our schedules nailed down to where we can do an episode. So stay tuned for that. That will be a very good podcast episode. So having said all of that, thank you for the privilege of your time. Our podcast is hosted on Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Be sure to share our podcast with your Second Amendment friends, family, and coworkers. You can contact us at Liberty Gun Rights Podcast at proton.me. Thank you for listening to today's episode, and goodbye for now.